Hello, everybody. This is my attempt to adapt Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life into advice for younger students, middle school through high school and even into college. It got a little bit long, so I broke it into a number of segments. If you want to look at the rest, just take a look at my channel and enjoy. Rule 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And boy, does this go with Rule 6. So I would say for a student, this is long-term versus short-term, okay? Understand that a lot of things that happen when you're a student, you have a course for a year, right? So what you could do is you could just memorize as much as possible, cram it into your head, and then forget it all once you're done with the course. That's expedient. It's easy, right? Well, for anyone who's good at cramming, even then, it's not the best way to, because you won't have actually truly learned anything, but you'll at least have gotten a grade, right? That's all you care about, right? That's expedient. What's meaningful is your maturation, is your long-term improvement. And you can only do that by really learning stuff, by really diving in and remembering it and learning it. And then, no matter what weird stuff you've learned in school, no matter if it's like algebra, God only knows, why do I need algebra? Oh, wait, I can use it for this. See? Part of the reason why we teach you all sorts of weird stuff, algebra, trig, geometry, physics, chemistry. Are you ever going to need chemistry? Well, we don't know, right? But one of the things I can tell you is the more skills that you have picked up, the more you have learned, the more things that you wouldn't even look at because you don't know how to solve them suddenly become things that you have the knowledge to deal with, at least in some level, right? I have a high school level of X. Maybe it's chemistry. Okay, so at least I know enough not to mix ammonia and bleach, right? While cleaning my house, so I know enough not to kill people with poison gas. That's always useful, But it's also that, I have math. I have the mathematical aptitudes. I've learned how to think mathematically, see scientifically. And I see a problem that I don't understand. I've got tools now because I've really delved into that meaningful learning from those courses that allow me to break it down, at least figure something out. I may not be perfectly right, but at least I've got some tools that I wouldn't have had if I just crammed everything and moved on. So that's one way of looking at this. Try to make sure that you understand the key elements, the key learnings, the stuff that you have to take away from it. And study for learning. That means actually learning study skills, right? Long-term memory is really important. The ability to memorize and keep means really memorize and understand. That's what you're looking for. Don't look at something as a series of interconnected topics. Look for the connectedness because the connections between topics are meaningful. The connection between history and science and technology and and math and whatever else there is, those connections are actually what built society. Look for them. There's a meaning there. Then there's something else that we need to talk about, okay, guys? And this is, I guess you could say, short-term versus long-term behavior, because this goes into other areas as well. So let's take a look at, for example, food, because I've had a number of students who are morbidly obese and it costs them. And I've been extremely overweight myself and I've lost a lot of weight. And part of it was because I learned to cook for myself, right? Meaningful, as opposed to fast food, which that's very expedient. It's not healthy for you, but it's quick. It's not healthy for you, but hey, I've got a microwave. It's not healthy for you, but I'm hungry now. Versus I can get home and I can have a meal that's cheaper than fast food because all those labor costs aren't in there. That tastes better than fast food because I actually can make it the way I like it. And it's healthier and won't actually give me diabetes in 10, 15 years as well as won't give me crippling joint pain from all the extra weight on my feet, my knees, my hips, and my back, over the course of my life. That's not insignificant, okay? But there's another layer yet, and this is in terms of relationships, meaningful relationships versus expedient relationships. And now this may make me sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but hear me out here. So I'm seeing a lot of people in college, in high school, pursue very physical relationships, okay? I mean, frankly, some of the things I've seen have just made me want to pour bleach in my eyes. And the reason why is because there is what is expedient, which is just cheap, easy, intercourse, sex, I just come over, we have sex, and then it's meaningless and I never see you again, or I don't bother and I move on. The problem with that is that's not meaningful and you pay a price for it, okay? I remember reading a paper a number of years back talking about essentially how much relationship damage, and this was measured by essentially number of divorces, number of whatever, was caused by people who had a lot of partners, and it goes up. The number of partners you've had increases your inability to stay in a relationship, increases the likelihood that you will divorce, and it happens very quickly. So if you've had, a lot of sexual relationships, well, it's very likely that you will not be able to maintain a stable partner for a very long time. And it's going to be very painful if you do manage to learn how to do it, because you're going to have to unlearn a lot of stuff and deal with a lot of the damage, and you did the damage to yourself. Here's an example. In college, boy and girl have a hookup. Now, boys are more resistant to this effect. Girls are much more vulnerable to it. And you can, if you want to know why, look at evolutionary biology. I'm not going to go into it now. But the point is that what a bunch of research has shown is that essentially there's this effect on mood. So for guys, we have a hookup, wada, 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 wada. And a lot of them will just be fine if they never see the girl again. They've gotten what they wanted, they move on. There are guys who are not going to be, and those are actually pretty much keepers, to be perfectly honest, I would say. But there's a lot of guys who are like that. And then eventually longer term, they start regretting when they don't have a longer term relationship. But that can take a decade or more longer than it can for women. Women, in general, what starts to happen is you have that hookup. And then if you don't get a call back, you don't get any kind of emotional connection with the person, even though you didn't go into it asking for an emotional connection, even though you didn't go into it wanting an emotional connection, nonetheless, because you don't have one, because they don't call back or whatever, because they don't want to do it again, or they don't want to, some people call it catching feels. I think that's a silly point. I mean, sex is like this. You're going to catch an emotional connection because it's designed for that. It's built for that. There's actually hormones that are supposed to do that. So what happens is a few days later, especially for a lot of women, their mood starts to go down because there's been no emotional connection. And their mood drops, and it's like, why doesn't he call back? I'm not going to hear from him again. Well, because you did something on the first date that you should have waited, a month or two to do, at least. Okay? That's important. Because what was meaningful to you, it turns out, was the emotional connection in that situation. That's why if you've been in this situation, your mood went down. It's because you pursued what was expedient to get them there, and then didn't go for what was meaningful, which was the emotional connection. If you'd gone for the meaningful stuff first, built the emotional connection, this wouldn't be happening. And this can lead to a nasty little cycle where your mood's going down and you want to feel better, so you go out and hook up again. And the cycle repeats, doesn't call back, you go out and hook up again. Well, first of all, you start getting a bit of a rep, which is a problem. But I guess that's a bit less in today's day and age. At least people say it is. I'm not sure. I'm not really convinced it is. I think, some of these evolutionary constraints really still happen. But even if you move and you shed that reputation because nobody knows you in the new place, the emotional damage is still there. And that's damage you've done to yourself by continually trying to self-soothe and almost turning it into an addiction. So understand what's meaningful to you a lot of times is an emotional connection with people, not a physical connection. Now, you might want that physical connection, but by golly, wait for it. Wait until you have an emotional connection. Wait until you have the meaning. Because at that point, if you're doing it right, which that may take some work. But if you're doing it right, you've built an emotional connection such that you'll still get respected the night out, the morning after, you'll still get a call back afterwards. You'll have a relationship. And understand, sex is part of a relationship, at least intimate partner relationship. That's part of it. That's one of the important parts of it, especially for guys. But you don't put the cart before the horse. You don't put the expedient before you've gotten to the meaningful part, before you've gotten to the connection. And if you've got a guy who ain't interested, he may be gorgeous, he may be attractive, he may be wealthy, but he's not interested in the meaningful part, goodbye. You don't need him. He doesn't need you. Never meant to be, move on. Later on down the line, he'll run into the problem, he'll deal with it his own way. And if it's a girl, she'll deal with it her own way. It's statistically more likely to be a guy, but there are girls like this. So, you, for yourself, pursue what is meaningful in relationships, especially. Because that's one of the things that you do not want to be, that kind of predatory person. It damages you in a very deep way over a very long period of time. And it will take you years to fix because you may not realize what you've done, what attitude you've let creep into your ability to relate to other people, until you suddenly find yourself wondering why people won't stay around you that much, why you have such shallow relationships, such meaningless relationships, and other people don't. And when the answer is you, a lot of soul searching, it's better to avoid that. So pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.